back to Brunch, a taste of Tobago. As I told you guys, this is our health corner. I am so privileged. I am so pleased. I have been waiting, have not seen my friend for a very long time. We were talking just before I came back, and he was telling me about traveling, how informative, how eye-opening being in another culture can be. And so I welcome you back to Brunch, a Taste of Tobago. Dr. Paul Crooks joins us. I think Dr. Crooks is so much more than just an accomplished veterinarian. He is like one of those spirits that just evokes positivity, and I needed to just put that out there today. So let me welcome you,
thank you very
Dr.
much for
Paul
that.
Crooks, back to Brunch, a Taste of Tobago.
Thank you for having me.
You know, what have you been up to though? What's going on? I haven't seen you for like so long.
Well, officially I've been on vacation, but
Right.
it's really been a working vacation. Because even as you talk about the trips that I've been on, they've been working trips.
Right.
I went to the Bahamas for the Caribbean Week of Agriculture, and then to the Dominican Republic for a One Health Community of Practice workshop. And following that, just last week, I was in Trinidad for a disaster response and risk management workshop.
Right.
And all of this training is, one, it's not what we would have gotten in vet school. Certainly there are new novel ideas and approaches to things that we as vets have to constantly be exposed to stay up to date. But furthermore, both the One Health and disaster risk workshops were what are called participatory workshops, where we were a group of experts across medical, environmental, veterinary fields. Among others, we had social scientists and so on as well, economists, and we were brainstorming ways to, first of all, new ideas to solve what we call wicked problems, wicked societal problems. It's all of this One Health approach where animal health, environment health, and human health are all interlinked. And we want ultimately to break down the silos that people have become accustomed to working in. So vets work with vets.
Right.
Doctors work with doctors. The environmental scientists work with environmental scientists. And we are trying to break down those boundaries to get that cross-network collaboration that allows for a much broader picture, a broader view. For example, if we go to hunters and say, stop hunting, from an animal welfare conservation point, that may be the instinct that we have. But also, these are people who've traditionally been hunting, who've inherited this tradition from their parents. This is their
Indeed.
livelihood.
Yes.
So we can't just say, stop hunting. We have to work alongside hunters to think of ways that we can hunt, to think of ways that maybe are more humane ways of killing animals,
Right.
if we must do it, because this is the society in which we live, and we have to work together and find ways to solve problems, to reduce environmental impact, and to improve health of everyone, health and well-being of everyone.
Definitely. And the narrative always has to change. I think that's one sure thing about existence, is the narrative changing. And you know, I'm thinking about my pet owners today because I would have mentioned them when I just came onto the set. And Christmas is upon us. It's literally upon us. And there are so many factors that we need to take into consideration when we speak of our pets. What are some of the risks associated with pets, pet owners? What do we not look forward to? Because that's the thing, there are so many things that happen just because of a celebration, and our pets are the ones who really suffer the brunt of it. What are some of the risk factors?
All right, so unfortunately I'll be out of the country again until New Year's, so you'll see me again in January.
Okay.
But I do want to address noisemakers and fireworks, because while that we usually don't have the noisemakers happening at Christmas per se, for New Year's it happens.
Right.
And those firecrackers, the explosives, the noises, We talked about it for Diwali, and I think we've mentioned it more than once before, but ultimately that's incredibly important. Animals get lost, they panic, they may hang themselves. We're talking about sheep tied on a hillside who,
Yes.
because of a firecracker, try to run, and then they just trip and fall and they slide down. They could never regain their footing. We've seen animals that are hanged to death. They suffocate because of things like that. So there are a few cautions that we recommend for loud noises. One, there are many ways to train animals to try to condition them to be more accepting of loud noises, and you can find lots of YouTube videos about that. But please try your best to find a way to permanently identify your animal, or take photos of your animals before the event occurs, so that at the end of the day, if your animal goes missing, and hopefully it doesn't, then your animal can be identified.
Right.
That's one. Additionally, we recommend that you properly fence your yard or secure your animal in a safe, warm, quiet environment as far as possible. And if you are the owner who holds your animals on your lap, holding an animal that's anxious, when the animal starts shaking, because you feel this vibration in the animal from the anxiety,
Yes.
you can hold that animal and just give it a tight squeeze. And just that comfort from the owner makes a massive difference for the animal's well-being. So I want to talk about that. One, the loud noises. Two, I want to mention food as a risk. Now, I know there are many other risks. Sometimes we buy cheap lights. You see lights somewhere, they're real cheap. You say, hey, what, this light's real good. And then next thing you know, we have fire and so on. So those risks are there to us and to the animals.
Yes.
But more specifically, food risks. Please don't feed your animals anything you wouldn't eat. That's one. Bones are incredibly high risk. Nearly every year we see animals with a bone stuck somewhere, whether it be stuck on a tooth, stuck in the roof of the mouth, somewhere going to the back. Please avoid bones. The lamb and so on may have bones that are incredibly difficult to chew. The animals may enjoy trying to bite at it over time, but those are the bones, because they can't break them up. Those are the bones that tend to get stuck. Additionally, many of the foods that we normally consume could be toxic. People buy a lot of grapes and so on at this time of year. Grapes can potentially be very toxic to dogs. And onion and garlic, that family, can also be toxic, particularly to cats. So you have to be very cautious about what you feed your animals. Everything is good in moderation, but what is moderation for a dog? What is moderation for a cat? Versus what is moderation for you? So you have to be very cautious. You may want to, the animal may beg, but please do not feed anything out of the ordinary if you are unsure. If you are really desirous of feeding something, call us at the Tobago Animal Hospital, 239-7837, and ask for advice.
Definitely. And let's not rule out livestock, because livestock is, let's face it, severely affected during this time. Let's talk about slaughtering and the effects of that, because it's like a mass amount that takes place during Christmas and like harvest celebrations and those kinds of really, really explosive events where you have so much going on at particular times. Let's talk about the slaughtering of our livestock. What effects would that have?
So that was something I really wanted to hit on today, because we consume a lot of meat at this time of year, in particular. Meat from various sources. In Tobago, we still have a lot of backyard slaughtering. Backyard slaughtering means that somebody is killing an animal in his yard, right? May or may not literally be the yard, but killing someone in his environment, killing an animal in his environment. The animal, of course, you could talk about humane methods of slaughter, but even beside that, these animals are not subject to an inspection in many cases.
Right.
So you don't have a public health inspector or veterinarian saying that this animal is fit for human consumption. I have seen cases where an animal was treated with antimicrobials. So let's say the animal had a infection on the leg. The vet comes over, the vet says, we can try to treat. It probably won't get better. My recommendation would be to slaughter. The owner says, okay, no, wait, I want to wait and try. Go ahead and give the antibiotic.
Right.
The antibiotic is given. All medications have a withdrawal period. You must wait this number of days for the medication to be cleared from the body before you can consume the animal or an animal product. So let's say the antimicrobial is given and there's a 3-week withdrawal period. But the owner, after a week of trying, sees, oh, the vet was right, this is not getting better. It's getting worse, actually.
Right.
Let me go ahead and kill the animal. Unfortunately, right now, and this is not just Trinidad and Tobago, and I want to make sure everybody knows that. This is not that we are backward or third world. Every country struggles with this kind of thing. Because in other countries, there may be random testing of meat samples, which means many meat samples get passed. But you have a situation where the farmer says, okay, I'll just slaughter the sheep in my backyard that had this antimicrobial being given, and I'm going to cut it up and give it to my neighbors. I'm going to eat it myself. I'm going to sell it. And this happens a lot. Chickens, especially, pigs, small ruminants, backyard slaughtering. Rabbits, backyard slaughtering. It's very, very, very common. The risk there is that we, as the consumers of the meat, primarily are putting ourselves at risk of exposure to antimicrobials and to animals that may have diseases that were not detected by the farmers, or were detected and they just discard. They see the lungs full of abscesses and they just toss that and still use the meat.
Right.
So you're potentially putting the consumers at risk. So I ask farmers, even if you are considering doing a backyard slaughter, to please contact the public health inspector. It is something that is facilitated. The inspector can come to the site, examine the live animal before slaughter, and then examine the animal's meat after slaughter, as well as the organs from inside. That combination of inspections before and after slaughtering is what gives us the confidence that we can consume this meat.
So here's the thing, and this is something that has been a buzz for a very long time. Because some of us still go to the butcher as opposed to just going to the supermarket or going to a high-end type of store or facility. What are some of the risks that this could impact on us as consumers? I mean, we spoke about the antimicrobials that may be present even in the parts of the meat that did not have the abscess, did not have the worms. What are some other risks that we face? Because a lot of us still go to a butcher to purchase meat.
In Trinidad and Guyana, in particular, I can't even think of the name now. They do poultry slaughtering on the side of the road and so on. Pluck shops. There we go. That's the common name. Pluck shops are very, very common. The problem is, in a lot of those facilities, when you buy from a Nutrina, Arawak, you are getting chickens that have gone through a process, gone through a line, have inspectors and so on. But some people consider that, they want fresh chicken. And so they want animals that are slaughtered right there and then. If you go to around Caribbean cinemas, south, there's a stretch to Princestown. If you drive past, you'll just see a bunch of sheep tied along the roadside and these wooden stalls. They slaughter the animals right there on the roadside, right there, and cut up the meat. But in many cases, they use wooden surfaces to cut up the meat. Wooden surfaces can never be disinfected. Wood is a very porous material, even if we can't see the pores. Even if you put a lamination on the top of the wood, when you start chopping, that lamination is gone.
Yeah.
And so you have bacteria, fungal agents that are getting into the wood. What is the slaughter procedure? Where at the abattoir here, the government abattoir, we have trained persons who know how to remove the intestine and the abdominal cavity and so on, so there's no contamination of the meat. But here, where you go to a pluck shop or to these roadside slaughter places, are they removing the intestines and so on so that the meat is not contaminated? Because now if the meat is contaminated, you're going to have what's called coliform bacteria from the intestines that could potentially cause serious disease. You have these bacteria, you have a wooden surface that can be cleaned, and now you have salmonella, you have E. coli, you have Klebsiella, you have Pseudomonas, you have these bacterial organisms that are growing and thriving on this wooden surface. And every piece of meat that goes on that wooden surface is being contaminated. Good thing, in Trinidad and Tobago, we cook our food till it basically burnt, right? We don't eat this kind of bleeding meats.
Yeah,
When
the
you
red
cut it,
meat.
we don't eat that.
Yes.
So thankfully, for the most part, our cooking handles it. But the reality is the risks are very high. If you handle chicken from these pluck shops and they didn't do proper procedure, you handle chicken from the pluck shops and you don't wash your hands, you now introducing salmonella to whatever surface the toy for your children, the baby bottle, these are the risks that are really there. And the possibility is we've all had exposure to things and we've been made sick by it and we've survived. But the reality is, if you could be sick or not sick, would you choose to be sick? Nobody would. So even if it doesn't cause a severe illness, thankfully, for most of us, it may cause severe illness in some of us, which is bad enough.
Yeah.
But also, why would you choose to be sick? Take the precautions to avoid that exposure.
Definitely. And it's all about being open to education, being open to educated about taking care of your animals, proper slaughtering, all these procedures and practices that should be taken into consideration. And I'm thinking so many of us are not very open. We are not as open as we should be. And so we always take things into our own hands. We always want to do things by ourselves. It's only when, as old people say, water more than flour,
Right.
we come in to call Dr. Crooks to say, well, Dr. Crooks, I need help, because we don't open ourselves to the right information. And I think that's one of the major problems that we have. Just repeat the number where you can be reached. We're getting ready to wrap, so just repeat the number where you could be reached.
So in case of any incidents with your pets or your livestock throughout the holiday period, you can call the Tobago Animal Hospital at 239-7837. That's the office number. But in case of emergency, outside hours and so on, holidays, you can call or WhatsApp at 688-8281.
Okay, so that's 688-8281. You guys heard it right here. Thank you so much, Dr. Crooks, for being a part of Brunch today.
Thank you for having me.
And always be safe. Safe journey. Come back to us in one piece, and we will see you again next year. So blessings to you as you go forward.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you so much. We're going to take a break, guys. We're going to be right back with more Brunch, A Taste of Tobago. But before I do that, let us take a look at our trivia question for today. What was the name of the first major hotel in Crown Point, Tobago? The answer, of course, at the end of the show. We're going to be right back. You know, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to see you when you get back. Brunch, A Taste of Tobago returns in a moment. See you guys soon.